Welcome to the Week 6 edition of Player Pool. Coming off a big Week 5 where we had a nice win on Week 5. Hopefully be able to carry it on into the main slate in Week 6. I'm going to break down the Week 6 slate for DraftKings and build some lineups right after this. What's up, guys? Simon Edwards at PumaCom here with Heat Seeker Sports, and you're watching Game Script. Actually, no, you're watching Player Pool. I am going to be breaking down the 10-game main slate for DraftKings this week, Week 6. Coming off a decent week in Week 5, I ended up coming in 17th place in the SPY. I'll go over that lineup here in a minute, but all those picks were recommended that I had in that lineup were recommended in my comment section when you guys hit the 50 likes, so make sure to hit that 50 likes again. I'm looking for 50 likes to put my favorite picks in the comment section. Also hit the subscribe button. I'm trying to get to 2,100, only about 90 away from that. So if you guys can hit that subscribe button, I definitely appreciate it. And make sure to hit the hype button as well on YouTube. That helps me get this show out there to an expanded audience, and the viewership is what helps motivate me to do these. You're going to want to subscribe anyways to get access to the free beta preview of the secret weapon that's coming out in just a couple weeks. I've been saying it since the beginning of the season, but it's for real this time. And it's basically a website I've been developing probably the last couple years, but really got the development team together in the last 6 months or so, and we've been hammering it out, trying to get it ready as soon as possible so we can take advantage of a lot of the news and nuggets that get overlooked by some of these other news sites. So we'll dig into that in a minute, but first I'm going to show you guys how things went down last week. You can see I was in 16th place in the SPY last week. I only won $1,000, but basically my lineup was Jake Browning to Jamar Chase. That was my main stack, and I ran it back with David Montgomery and where is he at? Amon-Ra St. Brown. Both those guys had decent games. You know, I could have done better with those spots, but I wanted to run it back with somebody, and I needed it to be a competitive game in order for Browning and Chase to take off. But Browning and Chase were looking dead in the water up until about the third quarter, and then Browning ended up being a garbage time hero for us. 2.4% ownership, 22 points, and his salary was only about it was at a little bit under 5K last week at 4,900, but it could have been a much bigger game too for him. The last 2 minutes of the game, they got the ball back, and I was ready for my lineup to climb up these ranks a little bit. You can see there's really not much separating myself at 215 from, let's say, fifth place, which is at 220. It's about 5 points. If I'd have hit that, for instance, that would have been a 7K win for me. But because Browning ended up getting sacked in the end zone the second they got the ball back, it ended up just sealing the game the game was already sealed, but it ended up sealing that the Bengals were not going to get the ball back, and there was going to be no other hope to make some points in that game. But really only needed 5 points to be the difference between 1K and 7K. But also, I was about 15 points out of first in this one. So, if we'd gotten a nice series between Chase and Browning, it could have easily won this as well. But moving on to the next slate just gives you an idea of, how, putting a stack like that. Nobody was on Browning. Chase was very low owned. You got 11% Chase, and he was going up against a defense that was banged up. I really liked the matchup last week. The Detroit secondary was completely decimated, and that's why I thought Jake Browning had a chance to put up some points in this one. Like I said, was looking scary until the third quarter when him and Chase finally got on the same page. You can see Chase was only 14%. This is in the SPY too. So, this is usually a sharper competition that's going to be in this one. But yeah, 14% for Chase. I also had some high owned guys, but this high ownership doesn't matter when you're competing with only 2% of the field when you got a guy like Browning in your lineup, and then 14% when you got Chase and Montgomery. I was surprised Montgomery had such low ownership. It seemed like Narrative Street was heating up for him last week as everybody started talking about his homecoming to Cincinnati angle. But fortunately, it ended up being a decent week last week, and we'll try to do the same thing this week. We'll start off with this Baltimore Rams game. Now, last week, I talked about the Rams on I think it was the Thursday or Monday night game of week 5. And I was talking about how I thought that the San Francisco 49ers had a chance against the Rams, even though like their entire team was on the injury report or out for the game. They were basically playing with backups and scrubs against the Rams, but a good offensive coordinator in Shanahan, or not offensive coordinator, a good scheme by Shanahan and a good game plan helped them to beat the Rams in that one, and they were able to do it with backup players like Kendrick Bourne, who I was super high on the show, but I ended up pivoting to Demarcus Robinson right before the game started. And unfortunately, I put Demarcus Robinson as my favorite receiver in my comment section. So that's one of the times where the comment section did not work out. But Kendrick Bourne, I was building him in the captain in the show, and he went absolutely nuclear in that game. So had the right idea in the beginning, but ended up not going there. So this game in particular, though, Jackson is out. So we're dealing with Huntley or Rush. I believe it's Rush that's going to be starting, but if he gets pulled at any point, we could see Huntley in this one. But Cooper Rush has shown some competence in the past, and he had some good games with Dallas. I think he has a winning record overall through his career. But he's playing with the Ravens in this one. Cooper Rush being the quarterback here actually helps out Zay Flowers because they're going to be relying on more of a pocket passer in this one, and he's going to be targeting obviously the best target out there. And we got Zay Flowers as that option for him. Him and DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins might be interesting too. Let's see what DeAndre Hopkins did last week. Oh, and Bateman, we got Bateman too as a wideout. So Hopkins last week had 2 targets with Cooper Rush. I believe Cooper Rush. Let me just double check and make sure Rush played last week. I can't remember when Lamar went down. Okay, so yeah, he played 20 passing attempts last week, and that was good for Bateman to have 3 targets. He had no receptions in that one. And we saw with Hopkins, he only had 2 targets, 2 receptions. But this game is going to be interesting for us. I don't like the rain, but like the game is going to be interesting because we're still dealing with the situation with the Rams. The reason why I was projecting the 49ers to do well against them was because of the injury report. And we're going to go over here. You see this guy, Witherspoon, that is out. He was a stud corner for them. And with him out, that leaves Emmanuel Forbes as the right cornerback. And you've heard me talk about him on the show plenty of times because we target him every chance we get. He was the guy that like deleted his Twitter account because people were making fun of him because he was so so vulnerable in the secondary. We're also dealing with a linebacker who's out and 2 linebackers that are out in this one. So any damage to this defense is going to help out the situation. We're missing Haverstein too on the offensive line here. Now with the Rams, like they are facing off against a Baltimore team that's been giving up points left and right. They're a sieve, basically. Look at the damage to them. We're missing, obviously, Jackson. We're missing a few of the receivers. Zay Flowers is questionable. We want to keep an eye on that because he's a key to this this matchup for me. Patrick Ricard is out. Emory Jones is out. Henry is sure to get game scripted out of this one. We're missing Broderick Washington is out. Matabuke is still on IR. Roquan Smith is out in this one. Awuzie is out in this one. We're looking at Isaac, Cone, Washington, Longer Beam, just a ton of guys out in this one. They get back Hamilton, and who was the other one that was out? Humphrey. They get back Hamilton and Humphrey. I can't remember if they were hurt or played last week, but they were both pretty banged up. But the whole defense is banged up for Baltimore, and that's going to set things up to be pretty easy for the Rams regardless. So Puka Nacua should be set up for a decent game in this one. The Ravens have been, just a terrible defense in general this season. They've been giving up 24.6 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position. They've been giving up 31.1 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. They've been giving up to slot receivers 20.2 DraftKings points a game, and that is where Puka has been running most of his routes. About 43% of his or actually, no, sorry about that. 62% of his routes from the slot is Puka Nacua. So he's been a primary slot receiver for the Rams, and he's got the best matchup on top of it in this one. Adams is also going to be in play. The Ravens have been giving up less to the wideout position. They've only been giving up 21 DraftKings points a game. 50% of the targets are going to wideouts, whereas 50% going to the slot. They've also been vulnerable against the tight end, but with the Rams, we really don't have like a great tight end to turn to. Although Higbee did get 5 targets last week, so Higbee might be in play for us at 2,900 to help us differentiate our lineups a little bit if you want to do a stack here. Talked about the matchup for running backs. I really like the matchup here for Kyren Williams. I think that he's probably going to be super high owned this week. Let me check the ownership on this one because this one's not going to be flying under any radars. Let's see. Kyren is at about 23%. So, highly owned, not the highest owned guy on the slate, but, Kyren is going to be in a good matchup and a good situation this week against Baltimore. Talked about Henry, not high on Henry this week. If he goes off, then it means that they're not passing the ball. And if he doesn't go, or if they don't go off, the Baltimore Ravens, then Henry's going to be scripted out. So there's too much downside for Henry this week. If we're going to back to the wide receivers now, like I said, we want to target Emmanuel Forbes mainly. And let's take a look and see if we can pinpoint where that matchup might be for us. Let's see. They got Emmanuel Forbes on this ESPN depth chart at. Let's take a look real quick. They got Emmanuel Forbes down at the right cornerback. So we want to target the guy who lines up on the left the most for receivers. And that is going to be that should be Bateman. We should be getting Bateman on the left the most. So he's going to be the one with that matchup against Emmanuel Forbes. So Bateman is a guy that I'm interested this week. He's at 4,400. I still like Zay Flowers in this too. Zay Flowers is going to run a decent amount of his routes in that same spot. Like he's in that side of the field 26% of the time, 39 on the other side of the field. But this is going to be a vulnerable secondary for the Rams. So anything's possible with this game potentially, being a bit more of a shootout. Maybe not a shootout, but I would say a competitive game. Let me see if I can find any notes here on Cooper Rush. Yeah, so yeah, not a whole lot on Cooper Rush here, but don't sleep on him. He is at himself. He's at 4,500. I tend to lean more towards just playing one offs in this game, or maybe Stafford. But I think most likely I would go one offs. I'd probably go Puka and run him back with Bateman, or maybe go Puka and Kyron and run him back with Bateman. And we'll see how things pan out before the game. But Stafford stacks might be in play this week as well. Let's go to Dallas versus Carolina. This game's going to be a popular one. For this game, we are looking at. Oh, by the way, for the total on that last game is 44.5 points, with Rams as 7.5 point favorites. For this Dallas game, we're looking at 49.5 point total, with Dallas is only 3.5 point favorites in this one. So we got a high total game with not a huge spread in this one. The problem is Bryce Young is the guy on the other side of the ball. And, he's shown up in some of these spots in the past in these good matchups, but he's only had one 26-point game so far this season. Let me take a look and see what Bryce's ownership is going to be at, because he might be worth it for us to take a look at. Let's go to quarterbacks in my ownership projections here. Bryce Young is looking at about 6% ownership, 6 or 7% ownership for Bryce Young. That is low enough for me to have interest in him, especially with Ted McMillan to pass to. But I'm also interested in Dak, obviously. Dak's been going off recently. I think his ownership is creeping up. We were able to get him pretty low owned throughout most of the season. Right now, he's at about, he's still pretty low at about that same percentage as Bryce Young. So if people are not expecting Bryce Young to be able to keep up with this and make this game competitive, I'm guessing. If we look over at running back, we got Javonte Williams, who's been going off this year. He's got a great matchup against the Panthers. They given up, 21.3 DraftKings points a game to running backs. Now the Panthers are kind of deceptive too, and part of this low ownership on Dak might be because the passing defense looks good, but they've been giving up points to real competitors. If we look over at some of these games that they've played, we see with Bryce Young, they gave up 24 points to Miami last week. They gave up 42 points to New England, and part of this might be part of why we're seeing these this defense looking good. But like 27 and 26, like when they're in the game, when they're making it competitive, which is what they did in week 2, where Bryce Young had 26 points. Like we can expect to see Prescott have a bigger game. He's had 3 games over 26 DraftKings points already. I mean, like he's got a great matchup this week. I think that Dak is going low owned relative to what his potential is. Javonte Williams, he's probably going to be one of the higher owned running backs on the slate. Dowdle as well. Both those guys have good matchups, as the Cowboys are giving up 26.9 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. If we look over at wide receivers, Lamb is still out. Pickens has been getting touchdowns in 4 out of 5 games, and has not been putting up the yardage really, or the receptions. We need him to get more targets to be, a wide receiver 1. But you can see he's put up 18 points 2 weeks in a row, and then 36 points in week 4. That was against Green Bay, and I would think that Pickens could exploit this matchup. They've been giving up 15.6 points a game, DraftKings points a game, to wideouts only. But Pickens is a guy, if they're able to keep this competitive, that's going to have, plenty of opportunity to do well in this matchup. Ted McMillan's in a better spot. Dallas has been giving up 31 points a game, DraftKings points a game to wideouts, and that's going to set up McMillan to have a nice game. He has not broken out yet. You can see he hasn't cracked really like that 13-point mark. 6K is pretty expensive for a guy who hasn't delivered, but he's been probably the highest volume guy on the Panthers, and he's got as good a matchup as any to break out this week. If we look at his ownership, though, if he's going to be super high owned, even though he's never delivered, he's looking at about 16, 17%. So I'm not scared away by that. I think that's still decent. Flournoy is the other guy who's been really good. I've watched him a few weeks because of the showdowns that he's been on. I've been paying attention to him, and I always seem to see him get targeted in some pretty clutch situations, it seems like. And then last week with Kevontae Turpin out, he ended up getting 9 targets. So let's check out the injury status on Turpin. This is why these injuries are so important, not only with the offense, but the defense as well. Turpin is out again this week. So Flournoy is going to be set up again. Mingo does not get a revenge game against Carolina in this one. But we're looking at Flournoy is going to be in a spot where he can have a decent game this week. Especially if you don't want to pair Pickens with Dak, you could always pair Flournoy with him and actually double stack him with Jake Ferguson, because the Panthers are giving up 18 DraftKings points a game to the tight end position, and Ferguson is one of the most highest targeted guys, wide receivers or tight ends this season, and you can see it paying off with dividends. We've had 4 weeks in a row with basically 17 plus DraftKings points, 9 targets last week. We had a couple weeks there with 14 targets and 12 targets. So if they're able to keep this competitive, I would expect double-digit targets for Ferguson this week. So he is set up nicely as well. Just good matchups all around for all these guys. I like this game as a target for us. It doesn't seem overly owned on top of it. So, I think that we could definitely target this game if we want to do some stacks this week. Looking at Arizona versus Indy. For this one, I have a total of 47.5 with Indy as 6.5-point favorites. They are playing in Indy. Daniel Jones has been on fire this year, but really the team is blowing out other teams so badly that he's not getting opportunities to put up more fantasy points. You see in the closest game that they had, he had 25 DraftKings points, 26 DraftKings points. He had 30 DraftKings points in week 1 when they blew out Miami. But the last few weeks, he hasn't really been getting that upside. But in a competitive game, if this is a more competitive game against Arizona is giving up. They're only giving up 14.6 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position. So maybe not the best matchup for Jones on top of the potential script if they end up running away with this game like they have. Like Kyler Murray is he's just terrible. Even with his rushing upside, he can barely put up like 18 DraftKings points. He's done that a couple weeks, but 2 and 3 with the team. The offense is just stale as hell. There's no creativity in that offense, and they're probably kicking themselves for getting rid of that old head coach. That's the Washington offensive coordinator now. I can't think of his name. Kingsbury. So yeah, not high on Murray. Taylor, I am high on this week. He's got a great matchup. Arizona's been giving up 22.8 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. That sets up nicely for him. Let's see what his ownership is looking like. Looking at Taylor, he's actually pretty low. So 15%. If you're looking for an expensive pivot off of maybe McCaffrey or one of these other guys, Jonathan Taylor could be set up for a nice game. He's had 3 games already over 30 DraftKings points, and he could easily do that here in this matchup against Arizona. Michael Carter, benefiting from the injuries to the backfield. He had 18 attempts last week, 18.3 DraftKings points. I was talking about him on the show last week. Carter seemed like he was going to be have a good opportunity to be the lead back, and ended up coming to fruition, especially with that fumble by the. Here, let's go over to the ESPN. Take a look at the depth chart here. All right, so especially with the fumble by DeMarcado, it just opened the door for Michael Carter. I believe Bam Knight ended up getting a decent amount of carries in this one, or maybe that was a couple weeks ago. Where is Bam Knight? I guess Zonovan Knight. He ended up getting 4 rushing attempts, so not a ton of opportunities, but he ended up getting a touchdown last week. Not really much else to talk about there. If we're looking at the wide receiver situation, it's an interesting game for Harrison. Harrison had a bit of a breakout a couple weeks ago, but then he followed up with another dud. This is how bad the Cardinals are. They can't even get this guy going. And Harrison came in a huge pedigree and has just not delivered. A college pedigree has not delivered. He's got his dad, Marvin Harrison, used to play for the Colts, so we got a little bit of narrative street here where Marvin Harrison Jr. is coming to play where his dad, used to be the top receiver. But, Harrison just has not delivered. But you never know if the narrative is going to be enough to maybe push him. You can take a look over at what the points allowed are. They're giving up 23.5 DraftKings points a game to the wide receiver position. So that sets up Harrison to have a potentially decent game in this one. So we just got to see if he's able to pull it off. And looked like he had a lot of psychological blocks because he hasn't been playing well. And when he scored that touchdown, the guy just basically collapsed. So, Harrison Jr. has just had a ton of pressure on him. We'll see what he's able to do this week. But I wouldn't be surprised if they make it a point to try to get him a touchdown in Indy this week. Pittman has been decent the last few weeks, just has not delivered the big game that we'd like to see out of him. He ended up last week, talked about him a little bit. He ended up with 15 DraftKings points. The Cardinals are giving up 21.3 DraftKings points a game to wideouts. That's a middling number. They're giving up 12.7 to the slot. That would tend to favor Downs a little bit more, but Downs never gets on the field. So he's been having trouble with getting targets, although he did get 8 last week, and he had 8 in week 2 as well, the last time they had a competitive game. The situation, though, with the weakness in the middle of the field for the Cardinals is going to benefit. It's going to benefit Warren as well. Tyler Warren, the Cardinals giving up 14.8 DraftKings points a game to the tight end position. So, that's going to be a good matchup for Warren in this one. Other than that, the slot receiver for the Cardinals has a decent matchup too. Take a look at him. I believe that is still Dortch. Let me look at the injury report on the Cardinals here. Yeah, I believe it is. It's either Dortch or Wilson. Wilson, I think he came back last week. He ended up with 4 targets. Didn't do a whole lot. Wilson has just historically not done a lot, but good matchup for him. Let's see. Yeah, Wilson is running 44% of his routes in the slot, so he would be our slot guy here. But I don't like Wilson in general. McBride, he's been pedestrian this year again with this offense, just a horrible offense. Has yet to score much over 15 DraftKings points this season. Very highly drafted, second round draft pick for best ball this offseason, and he's just not delivering. Defenses, the Colts defense definitely in play in this one, especially the way that the Cardinals have been playing this year. Let's move on to Seattle versus Jacksonville. So this is an interesting game too. We saw Darnold start to come alive last week a little bit. Darnold had that 31-point game against Tampa. Now, this game was a high-scoring game. I think a big part of that, and I talked about how I like Tampa last week, even though they're missing half their weapons. But Tampa was playing a Seattle defense that was basically decimated. And we're talking about a very similar situation this week. We're looking at Witherspoon is doubtful. Love is doubtful. Reek Woolen is doubtful. Finley's on IR. We got Hall, Mills, Hankins all out. So we got a ton of guys that are hurt in this secondary. Let's take a look here too at the offense while we're here. We still got damage to the offensive line, so their offensive line is still banged up. Let's take a look at let's see. Let's take a look over at the Jaguars here while we're here. I want to see what their okay. So their center is out. Hainsey. They're missing Strange is on IR now. Got some depth issues here at the left guard position with Cooper Hedges out. Defense, not too rough shape, but we're dealing with some linebacker damage, and Ransaw is out on the safety position. So Jacksonville's been a very good defense, but I do think that Seattle is equipped to to make this a competitive game, especially if Jacksonville is going to be coming alive in the passing game with all those damage to the secondary of Seattle. That would set up Lawrence to have a good game. Lawrence had 28 DraftKings points last week, but I'm really not sold on Lawrence. He looked terrible for most of that game. They ended up getting a couple fluky touchdowns to beat the Chiefs, but yeah, he looked absolutely terrible in that game up until those rushing touchdowns. It was like embarrassingly bad. Sam Darnold, though, he's been consistent for a year and a half now, and I think that Darnold, they're not going to have like one of these weeks where they're running away with the game, and that's going to be slowing him down from putting up points. So I think that Darnold is in play this week to try to answer the points being put up by Jacksonville. Just to give you an idea of what the matchup looks like for Darnold. By the way, for the total on this one, we're looking at a 46.5 point total and a 1.5 point spread. This is the perfect game to target because the spread is so tight and the total is not low, but it's kind of mid. And they're playing in Jacksonville, by the way. But it's a mid total between two teams who have weapons, and that could lead to definitely a competitive game and potential shootout, especially with that damage to the Seattle secondary. So I can't stress that enough. Jacksonville's been giving up 29 DraftKings points a game to the wideout position. Seattle had been giving up 18.4 DraftKings points a game, but like I said, with all that damage to the secondary, that number is going to go in flux. I mean, that's not a very accurate representation. Seattle's been giving up 16.9 DraftKings points a game to the tight end position, but unfortunately we lost Strange. That leaves us with Hunter Long. Look for him, potential cheap touchdown option. I had him as my cheap touchdown option a couple weeks ago. In Arroyo, who was it? Some other scrubby tight end ended up getting the touchdown. I can't remember who it was though, but it killed my it killed my pick'em for underdog. So let's take a look at the other side. The Jaguars have only been giving up 12.6 DraftKings points to the tight end position. Now, Jacksonville, the Seahawks, prior to their banged up defense, have been giving up 43% of their targets to the slot. So, that could be good for Hunter this week, Travis Hunter. You saw him come alive a little bit like last week. He made some pretty good grabs last week. 3 targets only. I don't know why they're not targeting this guy a little bit more frequently, but like 8, 6, 5, and then he's had a couple weeks with 2 and 3 targets. But he looked good against Kansas City last week. Hopefully they use him in the offense more this week. With Brian Thomas Jr., he's set up, like I talked about, for that matchup against the Seattle banged up secondary. He looked good last week too, but you see these guys, they just cannot get over this hump with these like 12 DraftKings points. It's hard to invest in a guy when you're not sure if he's going to be putting up more than a dozen DraftKings points, but he's set up for it. Even with that competitive game last week against Kansas City, they scored 31-28, and he puts up 12 freaking DraftKings points. So it's just like it's hard to rely on any of these Jags. Slot for the Seattle side, Jacksonville's only giving up 5.3 DraftKings points. That doesn't look good for Cooper Kupp. So it's primarily Jackson Smith and Jigba who I'd be targeting in this one with that matchup. 30 DraftKings points last week, but he's been on fire this season. He's one of the heaviest usage guys in a competitive game like we got last week. We can see him put up like 30 DraftKings points. Smith and Jigba is probably one of my favorite wide receivers on the slate this week, especially in this matchup in the game environment. De'Ami Brown, 4 targets last week. Again with these Jags, I wouldn't go thin on the Jags. Horton, though, you can go thin on the Seahawks. Horton has been decent. He's at 4,100 though, but you've seen him put up 11, 18, and 12. Did a video recommending him in best ball in the offseason, and he's done pretty well. He was going in the 17th round, 18th round when I was doing that, largely undrafted, honestly. And he's, for where we were drafting him, he's ended up being a pretty good investment. If you can get 1 week out of those week 18 or those 18th round guys that you're drafting, then you're in pretty good shape. Let's see. Washington, again, with these Jags, too thin, especially on a 10-game slate. For showdown, it's too thin. Defenses, not really interested in any of the defenses, but you guys get the picture. I like Darnold. I like Njigba. One of these other potential receivers in Horton, mainly. Not really interested in Cup. For the running backs, let's see. The running backs, Jacksonville's got the better matchup. Seattle's only been giving up 23.2 DraftKings points. Jacksonville's been giving up 21.7. So both of them have decent ones, but the better matchup goes to ETN here. And a couple good weeks. He was looking a lot better in the beginning of the season, but he's had a couple slow weeks recently, but still in play. Let's see what's Tootin doing. Tootin's not doing anything. Yeah, I mean, the one Jag that I'd be interested in is ETN this week. Walker's splitting with Charbonnet, and he's not getting the high leverage touches. Those 2 weeks when Charbonnet was out, I believe that was 2 and 3. Look at what his potential is. But, Charbonnet's just a thorn in his side, and I'm not interested in Charbonnet. Even though he's gotten 2 touchdowns in a row. So that gives you an idea of that game. Let's go to the Chargers versus Miami. Poor Justin Herbert, man, was set up to have a awesome season, and then his entire offensive line goes down. Let's take a look at what situation he's been dealing with, basically. So the Chargers had the best offensive line in the league coming into the season, and we lost recently. We lost Joe Alt. He's out this week. We lost Mekhi Becton. We lost Trey Pipkins. Slater, I'm not seeing Slater on this on the depth chart, but Slater, I guess he's out for the season. But we just keep losing these guys for the Chargers offensive line. Mekhi Becton was hurt last week. It looks like doesn't have an injury designation this week. As far as the running back situation, we lost Hampton last week too. Najee Harris. All these injuries happened basically after I bet on the Chargers to make it to the Super Bowl. So apologies to Chargers fans for putting a total jinx on them. If you're looking at the injuries to the defense, Dean Leonard is out. Khalil Mack, all these guys on IR. Just a ton of guys on IR. Eric Rodgers. On top of that, we're missing Deshaun Hand is out. Bud Dupree is questionable. Just too much damage on these Chargers. But the offensive line is the main the main thing that's hurting them. If we go to Miami, Miami's not much better. So Miami, we lost Tyreek Hill. Their offensive line is banged up as well. Austin Jackson, James Daniels, Andrew Mayer, Hermaine Ifedi, Yadni Kajus, Liam Eichenberg, and Aaron Brewer. Just injuries all over the place there. We're looking at the defense, the linebackers. We're missing Dodson. We got the nickelback all banged up. So, slots are going to be what we want to target against the Miami Dolphins, and that sets up perfectly for us here. Because look at what we're looking at with slots. Obviously, we got McConkey, scored his first touchdown last week. McConkey's been largely neglected because of Keenan Allen, another slot receiver. So the best receivers on the Chargers are slot receivers. We're looking at a situation where Justin Herbert's going to need to get rid of the ball quickly with a banged-up offensive line. They don't have a running game. The slot receivers are going to need to be an extension of that running game. So look for Keenan Allen and Ladd McConkey both to have potentially busy games in this one. Quentin Johnson, if he has more time to throw, that's going to make Johnson more interesting. Only 4 targets last week against Washington when they needed him. With the running back situation for the Chargers, we're looking at Haskins and Vidal. I think Vidal is probably the guy to target here. And Vidal finally fulfills the prophecy of best ball a couple years ago when we were drafting him in the 18th round of best ball, expecting him to potentially be the lead back over J.K. Dobbins, but that did not come to fruition. But finally, we get the Kimani Vidal opportunity we were waiting on 2 years ago. So we'll see if he's able to deliver. Haskins has been a pretty good running back for the Chargers a couple years now. I think a special teams guy, but he got 5 opportunities last week, and he got a target on top of that. Let's see how many opportunities Vidal had. Vidal had 4 opportunities and a target as well. So, I don't know how much I want to start one of these guys, but they're at $5K each. But, they're set up. If we're looking at the points allowed, first of all, it's a 43.5 point total. That's a low total. Chargers are 4.5 point favorites in this one. The Dolphins have been giving up 25.5 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. So that's why we're interested in Vidal and Haskins. If we're looking at the quarterback position, the Chargers have been giving up, or the Dolphins have been giving up 23.3 DraftKings points to the quarterback position. So that sets up Justin Herbert. They've also been giving up 15.3 to the tight end position. We go to tight end, and we got Gadsden over here, who's been getting a little bit more opportunity. Let's go with the snap counts. It can check these snap counts real quick. Got a lot. It always logs me out of this damn thing. All right, so moving over to Fantasy Pros, we'll get an idea of snap counts here. So I'm looking at tight end, and I want to look at the Chargers. And we see Conklin had 30%. Gadsden had a 54% snap count last week. And I don't know if it's because he's a better blocker and they needed blocking on the offensive line, but he had 54% of the snaps. He's been creeping up every week. Conklin creeping down. He was at 30% last week. But Gadsden could be an interesting play for us this week at 2,600 against Miami, who's been giving up points to the tight end position. Now, if we're looking over at the Miami side of tight end, we got Darren Waller. And Waller's been a stud already in the 2 games that he's played. I did not have any exposure to him in this showdown episode. The Dolphins versus the Jets. That ended up being a huge mistake. He scored 2 touchdowns. Last week, he added another touchdown. The matchup isn't the best. The Chargers only been giving up 8.5 DraftKings points, but this is a very condensed offense. It's Waller, it's Achane, and it's Waddle, basically. So I like any one of those guys, especially with that banged up Chargers defense that I was showing you earlier. On top of their offensive line, just the Chargers has just been destroyed with injuries so far. People are targeting the Chargers at a 38% clip. So slot receivers have done well against the Chargers. And let's take a look at the slot receiver. Who's going to be the slot receiver for the Dolphins? I believe it's Malik Washington. So let's take a look at Washington here. Washington last week, 5 targets. Hasn't really done anything this year, but the times that I've seen him play, he looked good. So I wouldn't rule out Washington to have a decent game at some point, but I like Waddle the most. If I'm looking to run back somebody, like Waddle is a prime candidate here. Waddle has been running only 19% out of the slot, but you know, Chargers been pretty good against wideouts, only giving up 18.4 DraftKings points. But Waddle is going to be uh, in a spot to get a lot of volume in this one. All right, so Achan, the running back, obviously for the Dolphins, he's actually their primary slot receiver. So Achan, I wouldn't say primary, but he's running a lot in the slot. So Achan could get a decent amount of volume in this one. 7 targets, 2 targets, 9 targets, and 10 targets. Obviously get the bonus in the rushing game too. Achan definitely in play this week. Let's see what his ownership is. All right, so looking at Achan, he's only at 12%. So he's another one of these high price guys that we can pivot to. 7,800 for his salary. Other than that, I don't mind using the Chargers defense against the Dolphins, just based on all their injuries and everything going wrong for them. But yeah, I mean, you can make a case for the Dolphins versus Chargers too at 2,200 with that offensive line. All right, let's go to Cleveland versus Pittsburgh. This will be a quick one. Really, only 2 positions I'm interested here are going to be the tight end and the running back. We're looking at a 38.5 point total with Pittsburgh as 5.5 point favorites in this one. We got the best run defense in the league in Cleveland. Let's see. They're only giving up 15.2 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. The weakness on Cleveland is more their secondary. They're giving up 25.7 DraftKings points a game. That sets up Metcalf if you want to use him. Metcalf had that breakout game last week in Ireland, or I believe it was Ireland or London. And that was in week 4, not last week. So he's coming off of a bye on top of it. Austin is still out. Tillman for the Browns is out. I do like the thought of Metcalf. With the other side of this, we're talking about a quarterback in Gabriel who is giving up, or who's a guy who specializes in getting rid of the ball quick. He's one of the fastest in the league last game he played to get rid of the ball. And that was in week 5 that we saw him play against Minnesota. They played in London last week. So Gabriel was getting rid of the ball quick. He was targeting his tight ends, and they're in a matchup against Pittsburgh, who's been giving up 16.1 DraftKings points a game to the tight end position. So that makes me interested in Njoku. We finally saw Njoku get a week where he was the primary focus of this offense. 9 targets, 6 receptions, and a touchdown. But Njoku and Fannin are both going to be set up in this one. The way that Gabriel's playing style is, I think he's going to be targeting the tight ends a lot in this offense. So I definitely like both those guys. And for the not really interested in any of the tight ends on Pittsburgh, I don't think. No, they're only giving up 11.9 DraftKings points. Pittsburgh, Metcalf would be really the only guy I'm interested in. But on the running back side, Judkins has just been a stud. I don't care what the matchup is. You watch him play. He's just got a ton of juice. I think that Judkins is going to be a stud running back. I think he can go against any matchup. Pittsburgh has been giving up 21.2 DraftKings points a game to the running back position on top of that. So it's a decent matchup for him. But Judkins could be a guy that we can start at cheap ownership too. Let me get an idea what his ownership is. Looking about 13%. So another middling ownership guy, but Judkins is a guy that I would be interested in this week. Let's go to the afternoon games. I'm going to take a look at New Orleans versus New England. This is a game with 45.5 point total. We got a tight spread in this one too, 3.5 points. A lot of people are high on Drake Maye this week. Maye had a good week last week, not from a fantasy perspective, but from a real football perspective, beating Buffalo. Prior to that, 3 weeks in a row, over 20 DraftKings points. Maye's only at 5,900. He's still relatively cheap, and he's going to be the highest owned quarterback on the slate against the New Orleans defense that's given up 20.2 DraftKings points. It's top 10 for a quarterback matchup. They've also been giving up 23 DraftKings points to the running back, but we really don't have a running back that we can depend on for these Patriots. We got Stevenson and Henderson splitting that backfield, and neither of them are delivering from a fantasy perspective. Ramondre had a couple decent weeks. Henderson hasn't done anything, so I have really no interest in going there. Wide receivers, the wideouts have been the ones to target for the Patriots. And let's see, Diggs is 41% in the slot, but he's at 41% lining up on the right side of the field. So Diggs, plenty of outside opportunity as a wideout. And he's going to be a popular pick this week too, popular stacking option for Drake Maye. Like I said, they're giving up 23.9 DraftKings points to the wideout position. His homecoming, though, that was his week coming home, but like 19 DraftKings points and 27.6. And when I say home, I mean back to his old team in Buffalo. Chris Olave, the matchup is not great. It's kind of middling. Olave running 38% of his routes in the slot. New England's only giving up 10 DraftKings points a game to slot receivers. They are giving up 25.2 to wideouts, though. And the side that Olave lines up on is the one that should benefit the most from that matchup. So Olave is definitely going to be in play. And you know what? Like I said that about New England with the slot number, but now that Christian Gonzalez is back, I was projecting last week that New England was going to be funneling to the middle of the field and to start Kincaid or Shakir as your captain option. And I actually abandoned that like an idiot before the game started. I went in a different direction. I can't remember what, but it was stupid. And Kincaid and Shakir ended up having big games in that one. But if we're trying to target someone similar in this game, I think it's Shaheed. Shaheed's been running 40% of his routes in the slot. So they might match up pretty well against New England this week. We saw Shaheed have his breakout week last week. 5 targets, 4 receptions, 114 yards, and a touchdown. We could see something similar if Olave is going to be guarded. Let's take a look at this depth chart here. Let's look at New England's secondary here. Yeah, Gonzalez is questionable. We're missing a safety on top of it. So, Juwan Johnson runs a lot of his routes out of the slot too. He's going to be in play. Christian Gonzalez is questionable, though. We want to keep an eye on his status. Carlton Davis is good, though. But if Gonzalez is back and Davis is back, they're going to be driving people into the middle of the field because all their other positions are pretty much mediocre in the defense. So Shaheed, Olave, and Juwan Johnson run a decent amount in the slot. With Juwan, we got back Taysom Hill last week. The only problem is the guy throwing to them is Spencer Rattler, who's just not that great. He had 21-point week in week 2. He's a 4,700 quarterback. New England might be in a letdown spot here against the Saints. Coming off that win in Buffalo, I think it was on Monday night. I can't remember if it was a Monday night game, but let me just double check here. I want to see what. Yeah, that was a Monday night game. Or no, Sunday night game. So, they don't have the same rest that they'd be used to. And they're playing against New Orleans, who can attack in the slot, which is the New England weakness. I wouldn't be surprised to see New Orleans take this game. But I don't think that is going to be slowing down Drake Maye. I mean, Drake Maye's matchup is good. The running back matchup is good. The wide receivers matchup is good. It's just all about going to be about New England or New Orleans, and if they're able to attack the weaknesses here. But yeah, I wouldn't hate like throwing in a couple Spencer Rattler stacks at 4,700 and running it back with like Diggs or maybe even Booty. Booty's always disappointed. He keeps disappointing. God, look, it's terrible. It's like Diggs is the only one of interest. Hunter Henry, he's been disappointing too. Like it's always with these New England offenses. There, actually, he had that 29-point week. I take that back. He's had a good week so far. But the matchup is also good. They're giving up 16.1 DraftKings points. So yeah, it might be if you're going to stack Drake Maye, I'd look at Diggs and I'd look at Henry, and you can run it back with basically any one of those New Orleans receivers. And if you wanted to stack Rattler stacks, I would probably do a single Rattler stack and then run it back with like 2 Patriots or something like that. That way you're getting the discount on Rattler's salary. Defense also in play for the Patriots there. Unless it's a letdown game. So we're looking at the Raiders versus the Titans. We're looking at a 41.5 point total in this one with a 5.5 point spread in favor of the Raiders. And Geno Smith has been terrible as a Raider. He had a couple good weeks, but for the most part, he's been terrible. They're 1-5 record. I don't know who's behind him on the depth chart. So, I don't know if there's like a drum beat to get rid of him. Cam Ward on the other side got his first win last week. He's been terrible too, but he's a rookie. 4,600 though. The Raiders are giving up 17.5 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position. They're giving up 26.9 to wideouts. We got a couple good wideouts here on the Titans. We got options like Calvin Ridley, 21 DraftKings points last week. Most of that came in the fourth quarter. We've seen a few good weeks out of Elike Ayomanor. And we saw those in the early season, but he's at 3,900 for his salary. And there's another guy too. There's another receiver. I think it's DK. I heard JM to win talking about one of these guys, and JM is a guy that I listen to. Him when he calls out these weird plays, and I was listening to his podcast actually this morning, and I heard him talking up this DK guy. I would keep him in your player pool. He's at 3K, but JM was mentioning that he also plays on special teams. He's a punt returner, a kick returner, something like that. So you can get extra potential there. But 5 targets last week, 5 targets a couple weeks ago, 4 targets a couple weeks ago too. The Raiders are giving up 26.9 DraftKings points a game to wideouts. If they connect on a deep pass, then this is a guy with super low ownership. Credit to JM to win on mentioning this in his podcast, but keep him in your player pool this week. Let's see. Other than that, Myers has not done much impressive at all. He's hard to keep going back to the well on in these good matchups. The Titans have been giving up 10.8 DraftKings points a game to the slot position. They've been giving up 22.7. Where they've been vulnerable has been the running back position. And that sets up Genty to have a good game. We saw Genty have his breakout game a couple weeks ago. Let's see what his ownership is, because he was a kind of a dud last week. Looking at about 15% for Genty. So another guy, with decent ownership, not overbearing, in a good matchup. So we get some good running back options this week. They're mostly expensive, but still some good options for us this week that aren't coming in at crazy ownership. It's going to be spread out this week. So maybe a Cam Ward to Ridley and maybe add that DK guy in there, and then run it back with Ashton Genty. If you want to do a Millie Maker stack that would have for sure low ownership, and you could have enough money to put in some of those other expensive guys. Seeing if I'm missing anything. For the tight end position, Bowers is out, which theoretically would make Myers a better play, but Myers has not been doing anything with those opportunities. But keep him in mind. Tucker, another guy that could get opportunity. The Titans have been getting beat deep, so that would set up Trey Tucker and Thornton to have a good game. Like one of these guys, like Thornton hasn't done anything though. He's a rookie. He was coming in with some hype, but he has not delivered. But Thornton, another deep guy for the Raiders. Not the best matchup. I would probably lean with Tucker. What's Tucker? Is he? Yeah, Tucker lines up equal amount on both sides outside, so he's going to have the decent matchup no matter what. And Bowers out, Maye in consideration. Not a good matchup. Not a good matchups for any of these tight ends. Not interested in the tight ends here. Let's go to Cincinnati, Green Bay. We got Jordan Love in a good matchup. Cincinnati's been giving up 19.9 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position. The problem we got here is we got freaking Flacco. Flacco's been terrible this year, and the Bengals pulled the ultimate Bengal move, and they traded for him to take the place of Jake Browning, who's actually been playing better than Flacco. But Browning was in a situation with the offensive line. The guy couldn't get anything done. He had no protection, no time. Flacco's not going to be any better in that situation. The good part about Flacco is, might be a more reliable arm for Jamar Chase, but I don't see Flacco doing any better than Browning, especially against like one of the best defenses in the league we got in Green Bay. So let's go over and look at Green Bay real quick. Let's see if there's anything that would show us like any type of potential matchup. We got Hobbs, questionable. We got Devontae Wyatt out. So, a couple things there. For the offense, we're looking at the offensive line is missing or has a few guys questionable. Really banged up offensive line. Look at all these guys that are out in the depth. On top of that, Christian Watson's still out. Jaden Reed on IR still. Marshawn Lloyd is out. This is a matchup that benefits the tight end position, though. Tight ends against the Cincinnati Bengals have been getting 18.6 DraftKings points a game. The other side, the tight ends versus Green Bay have been getting 17.1 DraftKings points a game. So good matchups for tight ends on both sides. But, Gesicki, we just haven't been getting the usage out of him. 5 targets last week in a game where they needed receivers. Kraft, though, is set up to have a decent game in this one. And Kraft has been getting 5 targets a game pretty much. 4,700, he's expensive, but he's in a good matchup. For the receivers, Jamar Chase, you could take a flyer on him with Flacco. 32 points last week. He had a 39-point game a few weeks ago. But these were both Browning because Joe Burrow went out in this week 2 game and Browning came in. I don't know how much of this point total came from Browning, but he did well in that game. And 32 points last week with Browning. Flacco coming into a new offense, learning a new offense. Just bad news all around for Flacco. The running back situation, like Josh Jacobs is probably going to be one of my favorite running backs on the week. 31 points last time they played in week 4. He's at 7,300. He's expensive, but he's in a great matchup. And like I said, Kraft, I'm interested in there too. Not really interested in any of the pass catchers for the Bengals. The Packers have been a middling matchup, but I don't trust Flacco coming in here in his first week. If he'd been with the team a little bit longer, then I'd be like, yeah, okay, let's go with that veteran quarterback against. Well, he's not against a bad defense, so I mean, even that doesn't work. So just the guys that I mentioned in this one, I'm not interested in Chase Brown. He's been stinking it up this year. So that's about my interest in that. And we got the 49ers versus the Bucs. This is another game I think can shoot out. Problem with the Bucs, though, looking at their injury report, if we go to the Bucs, we can see that they're missing Bucky Irving still. They're missing Evans. They're missing Godwin too. This is what I like the most about these Bucs, because no matter who's injured, Baker Mayfield always finds a way to have a huge game. And last week he was relying on Rachaad White. I think this week it might be a Cade Otton week. If we remember last year, the Bucs, when all those guys went down, like they had Cade Otton step up like big time. And we're looking at a situation here. Let's see what the total of this game is. We're looking at a 47.5 point total with only a 3-point spread in this one. San Francisco's only been giving up 15 points. I'm not looking at what San Francisco's been giving up for quarterback points because Baker Mayfield's been pretty much matchup proof. But they've been giving up 13.6 to the tight end position, which is weaker than they normally do. But they've been giving up a decent amount of touchdowns to the tight end position. Makes me like Cade Otton. They've also been giving up. Let's take a look at Cade Otton real quick before I switch gears here. 12.1 DraftKings points. Only 5 targets last week, but Cade Otton is in play. We take a look real quick at the Rachaad White performance last week. Rashad White, 23.1 DraftKings points last week, filling in for Bucky Irving on a team with no receivers. Look for him to be heavily targeted this week. 4 targets last week against Seattle. Christian McCaffrey on the other side is 20 plus DraftKings points every game this season, and he's playing against a Tampa Bay Bucs defense that's a good run defense, but they have been giving up middling DraftKings points to running backs, and that's going to set up him to potentially be decent. Now for the wideouts, Igbuka, another guy, ton of volume. We've seen him go off in 3 out of 4 weeks. He's the only guy to throw to, and Baker Mayfield is not afraid to throw to guys, whether they're open or not. And Igbuka's been making some nice catches, so don't be surprised to see him have a monster game. If we're looking at, so he was running 36% of his routes in the slot, where San Francisco's been vulnerable. They've been giving up 13.5 DraftKings points a game to the slot, but Igbuka would be set up if he has a third of the slot routes in this one too. Kendrick Bourne, guy I talked up last week on the Showdown show, and then it didn't end up using him. I pivoted to Demarcus Robinson for some reason. His matchup isn't great. The Bucs have been giving up 21.6 DraftKings points a game to wideouts. Now, the quarterback matchup is good. Bucs have been giving up 20.5 DraftKings points to the quarterback position. I'll get there in a second. We're looking at Juwan Jennings is looking like he's going to be back. He's at 4,800. That's going to give us another guy to target. Juwan Jennings, he's been running about a third of his routes in the slot, so he's going to be in play against Tampa Bay, who's also been giving up. They've been giving up 10.5 DraftKings points to slot receivers. And Shepard, Shepard gets that good slot matchup against San Francisco too. But not overly interested there. The tight end position, Tongas is the guy who has a good matchup on San Francisco. They've been giving up 14.6 DraftKings points. Tampa Bay has, and he's at 3,700. And similar situation with these 49ers. If we take a look at the injury report here on the 49ers, talking about another team missing like a ton of offense. They're missing Purdy. Ricky Pearsall is out again this week. Ayuk is still out. A couple depth issues there on the wide receivers. We're looking at some depth issues on the offensive line too. Then in the defense, Trey Tomlinson is out. Bosa's on IR. Teron Jackson is out. A lot of damage to the 49ers this year. Thank God they have the easiest strength of schedule. Otherwise, they might be struggling this year. But watch them get healthy right in time for the playoffs, which should be fun. So San Francisco quarterback, I do like Mac Jones this week. He's got that good matchup that I was talking about with them giving up 20 DraftKings points. I don't think he's going to be heavily owned. We got a 3-point spread in this one, 47.5 point total. So we're going to be set up for a potential shootout here. They're playing in Tampa Bay on top of that, which I also like. Coming off that game versus the Rams that they won, could be a letdown spot here for them, but let's see. Anything else I need to mention here? All right, so let's build our lineups here. I'm gonna start with that game too. I'm gonna start with that San Francisco Tampa Bay game because I think a lot of people are going to be on Baker Mayfield this week, Mac Jones has been playing really well, though. So I'm going to put him in my captain. He's going to need some pass catchers. It's funny, in this game, we're going for pass catchers. The running backs are going to be the pass catchers in this one. So I'm going to put in McCaffrey and White. I'm going to go over to – this is going to be a different type of stack in this one. I'm going to put Tongas in this one. So I got Mac Jones stacked with McCaffrey and Tongas. And then I'm going to run it back with Igbuka and White. So let's see how this goes. That leaves us with 4,700. Let's go to the defense here. Make sure to hit that like button. Give me the 50 likes and put out my favorite picks in the comment section. Also, make sure to hit that hype button and then subscribe to the channel to get access to the secret weapon coming out, free beta preview in a couple weeks. You're going to want access to that. Only to my YouTube subscribers. So let's go to the defense. Let's go with those Titans against Vegas. Vegas has been terrible. Let's see. Let's get Judkins in here. All right, let's put Judkins in. And we'll put Rashad White in the flex. Judkins could get us a nice lower owned option here in the running back situation. Just making sure I'm not missing something here. Oh, I like Kyron Williams a lot. Let me get Kyron Williams in that running back instead of Judkins. Actually, you know what? No. Let's get Judkins in there and see if we can get Puka Nacua. No, we can't get Puka Nacua. Well, I guess we can. We got 2,000 left. Let's see what we can do different here. Let's get rid of Tongas. Let's go to Gadsden because he was cheap. And we'll see what that does for us. Gadsden's at 2,600. Leaves us with 3,200. My arm is falling asleep here. 3,200 gives us options like let's see. Give me some options here. Oh, you know what? Let's go with that JM play. Let's put that DK in there. That'd give us DK. We're stacking him with that Titans D, so he got the kick returns if he returns anything. We got the Mac Jones to McCaffrey. McCaffrey stack, just a single stack there. Running it back with Igbuka and White. We got Nacua in there. We got Judkins as one-offs. We also got Gadsden in there as a one-off. So I don't hate this build. I'm probably missing something. Let me check here. Trying to make sure I'm not missing one of my favorite plays here. Well, I'm missing a lot of my favorite plays, but like that's what you have to sacrifice when you're doing like these stacks. I like the Rams play. We'll do a Rams stack next. Yeah, I think taking advantage of what I need to take advantage of here. Let's do a different lineup. Let's do like the Panthers stack against Dallas. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go with Prescott. And I'm going to stack him with I'm going to give him Ferguson. Let's run it back with Tet. And let's get Flournoy in this one as a cheap guy for us. And the defense, I'm going to get cheap at my defense. I guess let's go with Tennessee again here. For running backs, let's see. Genty is one of my favorite running backs this week. I keep going back to Judkins. Like, it's hard for me to pass up on him. So let's put him in there. You know, if we wanted to be sneaky with a stack here, knowing that Cleveland's given up 26.8 DraftKings points a game to wideouts. Or sorry, they're giving up 25.7. Let's get Metcalf in there. Nobody's going to have DK Metcalf, and him and Rodgers looked pretty on the same page. Yeah, Metcalf will be under 10% for us. Him and Rodgers looked good the other day. So this is 7,900 for our flex. We get Achane. Smith and Jigba we could get, which I love that. Igbuka. Let's say we want to stack. Let's get rid of let's say we want to stack this San Francisco. We don't want to ignore that. Let's get Igbuka and McCaffrey in there. Leaves us with 3,700. Don't love that. Let's see where that can get us though. Bond, Wicks, Washington, Tongas. We can get Tongas. I don't mind going double tight end. Njoku. Let's swap out Igbuka. And instead of Genty, let's go with White again. 5,900 per position. Let's look at our wideouts. Already got Dak double stacked in this one. We're running it back with Tet. We got the San Francisco Tampa Bay game stacked here. Let's just look for a good receiver. Puka. 3,100. So we can get that DK guy again in this one. And then we got him stacked with that Titans defense again. So, I mean, there are cheap options. Like, I don't like putting the Flournoy and that other cheap guy in there, though. But if we need to, let's get rid of McCaffrey. Let's put Genty in there. Uh, 4,600 there. Let's see. What's Pickens? Pickens is 6,800 now. He was cheaper before. But I also like that Seattle Jacksonville game. So it's hard. It's going to be hard to like stack all these different games. Well, I guess I don't really like the Jacksonville side of that Jacksonville game. If we put Bryce Young in here instead, what's that do for us? If I get Bryce Young in there, it gives me 6,300 in salary. I got Genty in there. Let's go with the flex. Kyron Williams. So, that sets us up nicely. Just make sure, like if you do something like this to make sure that your flex has the guy starting in the later time. All right, let's go to there's a few games that I like. It's not like last week where I was more narrow. Let's go to Seattle, Jacksonville. And let's go with the Darnold stack. I like Darnold, obviously Smith and Jigba. And how much is Horton? 4,100. We can keep him in mind as a cheap option. On the Jacksonville side, let's run it back with ETN. And that's where the Jags have been the weakest, I believe, or the Seahawks have been the weakest. So looking at defense, let's go with the Titans again. All right. So we got the Jacksonville game stacked. Not overstacked, but we got it stacked. I want to go to that Tampa Bay game and get some of those pieces in there. So let's get White in there. And on the San Francisco side, I don't have a tight end yet. Let's get that Tongas guy in there. Although he's expensive. I don't like the price on him. All right, so we got San Francisco and Tampa Bay. 6,300 per guy. We got Seattle and Jacksonville. We can get a little bit of chalk in here. Let's get Nakua. $5,100 per guy. Let's go to if we put in a guy like Jacobs, at least it's 3K. There's that DK guy again. He keeps showing up. That's probably why JM was talking him up. If we go to Genty here, if we wanted to go Genty there, we could go with that DK guy. Let's take out the Titans, and it gives us a few other options. We go with Cleveland. Could go with the Saints. A few different options there. But I'm just trying to mix and match with those teams that I like. I'm gonna share this real quick. This is my player pool. Had someone requesting it. Let's see. A few times. I believe Corey. But you can see that the quarterbacks that I liked was like Baker Mayfield, Dak Prescott, Matthew Stafford, Justin Herbert, Jordan Love, Drake May, and Sam Darnold. So I like a few. I'm going to be whittling this list down as I do more research, but that's where it's at now. Running backs are like McCaffrey, Achane, Jacobs, Genty, Williams, Kyron Williams, and Javonte Williams, Rashad White, Judkins, and Dowdle. For the receivers, it's a long list. You guys can see Puka, Njigba, Igbuka. Jeez, it's like tongue tie right there, trying to say those three names fast. Pickens, Achane, Brian Thomas, Waddle, McMillan, Flowers, Johnson, Diggs, blah, blah, blah. You guys can see the list. I'll leave it up for a second. I don't want to read through all those names. And if you don't, you can rewind it and pause it. For tight end, we got Ferguson, Kraft. Those are my two favorites. Waller I like a lot, and Tongas I like a lot too. Barner, not so much. I'm going to take him out. Let's get him out of that player pool. Njoku I like Johnson. I like a lot of freaking tight ends this week too. Hunter Long is more of a like a play on the matchup, but I'm not a huge fan of him. Defense, I didn't really do my defense, so I don't have anyone in defense. So you guys can figure that out, though. That's it for this week, guys. Make sure to hit that like button. Hit that hype button if you want me to show my player pool in the future, too. I need hype on this. I need to get this viewership up on this main slate show so I can justify spending the time on it. Also, subscribe to the channel. Like I said, get me to 2,100 subscribers, and I can put out my my secret weapon to the subscribers of the YouTube channel. You're going to get a free beta preview if you're a YouTube subscriber. All right, guys, I will see you for the London show.